In the mid-90s, Square and Nintendo had a very strong relationship, releasing games only on Nintendo consoles, creating some iconic games in the process. So, naturally, after being so close for a while, Nintendo decided to lend them their most important franchise ever and make a game out of it. But there was a problem. Square made RPGs, which were very story driven and set in medieval times, and Mario was definitely not story driven or set in medieval times, so problems already started to come into light when developing the game. At first, they drew Mario with a horse and sword, but Miyamoto didn't like it, and instead replaced the sword with the hammer from Donkey Kong. This moment showed what Miyamoto wanted out of the game, for it to be Mario. With its newfound ideology, Super Mario RPG was born, being as Mario-y as can be, and I love it. This game starts off like any other Mario game. The princess is captured, go save her. But things go insane when a giant sword comes out of nowhere and flies into Bowser's castle, destroying Star Row, a place that grants wishes, into 7 pieces. Now go collect them all and stop the new bad guys, the Smithy Gang. Mario becomes allies with Mallow, a Cloud Boy who's raised by frogs and thinks he's one as well, Gino, a spirit from Star Road that possesses a doll, and the regulars, Princess Peach and Bowser. No Luigi though. When you hear this plot summary, you might think, wow, this game's plot is super basic. And it is, especially for an RPG. But the simple story is what allows the characters to really shine, and boy do they shine. There are more characters beyond those two though, as some really cool boss designs and even generic Mario characters are given, well, character. But the biggest shining stars of the game are, surprisingly, Bowser and Peach. This game actually gave them now iconic personality traits that don't make them as one-dimensional as they once were, sharing character traits from this game that have been recently used as the Mario movie. This was the game that made the goofy, sometimes serious Bowser and the strong yet caring Peach that we all know and love today. Another thing that this game excels at is its combat. While it seems bland and generic at first, like any other RPG, the thing that makes it stand out is time hits. If you press a button at the right time, you can do extra damage, which makes the battle system infinitely more rewarding. Not to mention the upgrades that you can get from the item shop, so you can try out even more moves. Not to mention the special attacks you can get from leveling up as well. Very rarely does the game ever feel grindy or repetitive, since the level up system flows naturally with the progression of the game. I'm actually excited to battle sometimes, just to hear the catchy battle music. Speaking of music, this game's OST slaps! The work done by Yoko Shimomura is incredible, and she would actually end up making the music for the Mario & Luigi series as well. She was absolutely cooking up in the studio, creating masterpieces like The Forest Maze and Let's Go Down the Wine River. This game's soundtrack has lived in my head rent-free for a long time now, and I couldn't be any happier. Unfortunately, since the game came out on the Super Nintendo, the 2.5D platforming is a little off, and timing your jumps can be a chore. But while the platforming can suck, it can lead to incredible rewards and secrets, making the slightly tedious platforming worth it. Okay, enough with the boring critic review stuff. Let's talk about how goofy this game is now. But I can't talk about the goofiness of this game without mentioning the GOAT, Booster. This man drank Princess Peach's tears like it was nothing, rides a toy train, and owns an entire tower. And every word spoken out of his mouth is peak character writing. Not to mention you fight a sentient cake as one of the bosses created by 2 German Koopa Troopas, and the Japanese version makes an abundant amount of anime references. Not to mention that this game has a wacky sense of humor. Anytime you watch any cutscene or interaction, you feel like you're watching an episode of Tom and Jerry. And I love how this game manages not to take itself too seriously and goes all out on its goofiness. Like, come on, in this game, Toad owns a bazooka. a bazooka. Unfortunately, this definitely turns off some people who genuinely want an emotional experience. After all, the title does say RPG. So don't expect any Pixar level storytelling from this game, or to become a changed man from this game either. It's not that deep. After all, this is the game where Bowser writes haikus. It isn't meant to be taken seriously, and if you don't want that, that's fine. But if you don't care about how serious your games are, I couldn't recommend this game enough. It's so interesting where so many seemingly commonplace ideas in the Mario universe got their start. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten a sequel to this game, and probably never will, since Square and Nintendo had a falling out. But thankfully, there are other alternatives, like the Paper Mario series. That has a good fan base. After all, the original Paper Mario was meant to be the sequel to Super Mario RPG, not to mention the incredible Mario and Luigi series. That's probably dead. But even though the game hasn't gotten a proper sequel, I'm happy it doesn't, because it truly makes it unique and special. And of course, one of a kind. Not saying I don't want a sequel though. In conclusion, Super Mario RPG is not only goofy, but a well thought out RPG that aged like fine wine, filled with incredible characters, catchy music, and the best visuals that the Super Nintendo has to offer. This game will probably remain as my favorite game of all time. Thanks for watching.